Thank you for joining us for a very special interview episode of the Clive Barker Podcast. Jose and Ryan had a chance to chat with Stephen Dressler and Cheryl Bentzen-Green about the Clive Barker official fan club newsletter and website Lost Souls, started way back in 1995. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive, an advocate of his art. But Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. Click the side banner and follow the link to the Etsy shop to have a look and buy one of his books, and keep an eye out for the return of his original art once it's back from the galleries. So in that vein, Texas friends, you'll have a chance to meet Don and see around 30 of his paintings available for sale at the Jingle Bell Market, December 10th, 2022, from 10 to 3 at the Country Place Community, 3119 Flowerfield Lane in Pearland, Texas. This is episode 382 of the Clive Barker Podcast. We're going to be talking about Lost Souls with Stephen Dressler and Cheryl Bentzen-Green. So thank you for joining us. This was amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so glad we got a chance to talk to you.
No swearing.
Oh, I'm a Jersey girl at heart.
Yeah,
gotta swear.
It happens.
Thank you for joining us for this. You guys were originally the creators of the Lost Souls fan club for Clive Barker fans back in the 90s. When did that start? Was it like 96 or 97? I kind of forgot.
I'm not sure. We started it because the original fan club fell apart, and Stephen and I met through the original fan club. I wrote to everybody in the back of the old fanzine, and Stephen was the only one that answered. So we became pen pals.
Was that the Appreciation Society?
No, that was there was
Dread.
There was Dread. No, we met through Dread.
Through Dread,
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess from there, when that Dread collapsed and he didn't want to do it anymore, the guy Michael, Clive offered for us to kind of pick up where they left off.
Oh, okay.
Well, we approached him. That was shortly after he painted that mural, right?
Yeah, I think it was during that time. We went out to eat, or we were sitting in a hotel room or something.
Yeah.
It came up, and then it just
he was like, yeah, sounds great. You guys should do it.
So just to give a little bit of context to what you guys were saying, when you mentioned the mural, it was when you guys met in New York, right, for the Light, Wisdom, and Sound commission that Clive got for that nightclub.
Well, Stephen came to visit me because I lived in New Jersey at the time, and I became friends with Bess Cutler by purchasing various pieces of Clive's art, and Stephen also purchased various pieces. So when Clive showed up to do his signings or whatever, I was like always there. So I got to know Bess and Herbert very, very well. I just loved them so much. And then Stephen came to visit, and we went to watch Clive paint the mural because Bess invited us. So it was Stephen, me, and his apprentices in the big room, him painting the particular painting. And we took all those, well, I think Stephen took most of the pictures, right? I
think I brought my camera.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you guys still have any of that stuff, or did you post whatever you had at the Lost Souls magazines?
No, we've got a lot of stuff packed up.
Oh wow!
Stuff in boxes.
Photographs still, and I did send a lot of my collection over to Craig Four, who used to help us with the website, the CliveBarker.com, and unfortunately he passed away.
Oh, did he? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he passed away a couple years ago, and so I don't even know where all that stuff went. He was very sick for quite a couple of years, and
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah,
he was a big. And he did everything for free, so I always felt guilty, and I would send him anything extra I had, I would mail to Craig, and he was just, very excited to get all that stuff that I sent him.
Yeah. So apart from you guys had also like Brett Green was part of the team, right? Yeah. And Craig Four that you just mentioned. What was he like? Was he the guy who created that website? Was Midian back in the 90s, I think?
I think that was actually...
Yeah, I don't know who did that.
That was that guy from England, I think, right? That guy, what was his name? I'd have to ask my husband. He would remember.
That's
husband,
okay, yeah.
The whole side of all that stuff. I only did like the scanning and the typing. So I'm not the computer mastermind of the website. You know, I just set up this photograph and this artwork. And like it kind of annoys me when I see people steal stuff off the website because I'm the one who sat there and typed all those short stories into the website, the New York Times. So when people copy and paste it, I'm just like, you know, scanned for hours. And that was back when scanners were pieces of crap.
Right.
Right, yeah.
You would sit like for 12 hours scanning like 12 things because it just took so long.
Yeah.
But Stephen did more of the magazine stuff than I did. As far as printing and doing the interviews and stuff.
I got the fun part, in my opinion. I got to actually talk to Clive from time to time on the phone. And,
that's cool.
And
I got anxiety talking to him, so Stephen always took that role.
You guys also had Karen, who did some of the artwork for the website, correct? Karen CRI?
Yes.
And there was a few more people, but a lot of that stuff, I can't open some of those biographies on the website anymore because the website changed so much. But you guys interviewed a lot of people over the years with the Confessions interviews. You guys even interviewed people like Scott Bakula. You guys got Douglas Winter when he was working on that volume.
Revelations?
Revelations, yes, thank you, yeah. That's one of the ones that's missing in my collection, but I'm sure Ryan has that.
Yeah.
We met Doug somewhere.
We met Doug many times.
Yeah, he was always hanging around. He was doing the biography, so we bumped into him quite a bit.
Yeah, and in fact, Doug, I sent all the actual photographs from that Light, Wisdom, and Sound session for him to put into the book. So in the book, we're thanked in the beginning of it, I believe.
Yeah. Did you guys know about the recent book that came out? It's called, it's Phil and Sarah Stokes. They put out a book called Dark Worlds, Clive Barker's Dark Worlds. It goes through the entire chronology from, Clive's childhood to his early work, goes through all the Books of Blood stuff and Hellraiser and all until like 2022. And it just came out now. And you guys are mentioned in several places in the book, and you're in the bibliography as well. So,
positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we tried to get them to take over the website, and they were interested, but they just wanted us to hand it to them for free. And back in the day when you had a .com, it cost lots of money.
Right.
And still to this day, we've been paying to own those particular websites. So it's not something after 20, 30 years that my husband was going to just hand over to somebody.
Gotcha.
I'm on it right now. I'm actually on the website right now.
So it hasn't really been updated, but I wish that we could have handed it over to them. I would have loved for them to have it, but it just didn't work out.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
More business transaction for us at that point,
Sure, of course, yeah. Those things, like you said, they cost money. Yeah, you guys show up in Dark Worlds. You're mentioned here on page 139. They were talking about some of the fan publications that were done, and he said that on issue 11 of, I think it was, what was this, Dread? No, The Breed? No, Dread was Dread. Said issue 11 featured articles by two members of The Breed, which was another publication, right, that existed at the time. Cheryl Bentzen.
That's what they called the fans, right? The Breed? Is that what they called us? The Breed?
Yeah, I think so.
Cheryl Bentzen and Stephen Dressler. 2 years later, after The Breed and Dread folded, Cheryl and Stephen would launch the Lost Souls official Clive Barker fan club, an online fan site. And the first issue of the club's self-published magazine came out in 95. I think that was issue 0, right?
Yeah.
And featured a short story by Clive, the titular Lost Souls. That's the first time I ever read this story, Lost Souls. That was the first time was in your website, because you guys used to have the little thing at the top saying, "Have you read the Lost Souls story?" And that was one of the first things I clicked. And for years, that was the only place that I had to read that short story, which is a really cool story with, of course, Harry D'Amour.
Well, at the time, I think the story was only published in Cutting Edge.
Cutting Edge, yeah.
And you couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, it was one of those stories that was just...
And it was published in 1985, and it was never republished.
Right.
Yeah. They published it again years later, like a few years ago, right, Ryan? In a magazine somewhere, they republished Lost Souls. I think so.
Not that I know of.
Oh, yeah, no, they totally did. I think we mentioned that in the podcast. We've been doing this for almost 10 years now, so some stuff definitely we kind of cover, but then we kind of forget a little bit. Like 5 years later, we're like, oh, yeah, that happened. But, so for a long time.
I might have typed that one. That was one of the ones I typed. Probably.
Yeah. Was it?
I know for sure I typed Hermione and the Moon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys post that in, like, the Lost Souls newsletter?
I think it was on the website at one point, wasn't it?
No.
Yeah, Lost Souls was, for sure.
Was it?
Yeah, Hermione and the Moon wasn't there, though. No.
I don't know. We used to do so many hours of that stuff that
This person over here did everything on the web, and I did everything that was not on the web. So
Right.
Yeah.
we're not always on the same page.
Well, and
I don't know what Cheryl was doing.
Lost Souls was it 0 or issue 1 of the fanzine too?
It was in 0.
Zero.
Yeah.
That was basically, I think, pretty much everything that was in issue 0 was just the story and then maybe, a short introduction kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I remember that we talked about that, about making that our first issue, just because fans, didn't even really know the story existed.
That was my mission from when I first became a fan, was to collect all these weird stories that were not part of the Books of Blood, and it was really hard up until eBay and Amazon came along. Then it got a lot easier.
Oh, and Animal Life too. Was that in the CliveBarker.com or was that somewhere else? I forgot.
That was in USA Today. It was published.
There you go.
First in USA Today, whatever the pullout section was.
And a supplement thing.
I was in Portugal at the time because I grew up in Portugal. I only moved to the United States in 2013. And so it was hard for me to be able to go to conventions or anything like that. So I joined the Lost Souls fan club at the tail end of the fan club. I think might have been around the time that you guys had like issue number 9 or something like that. You guys did 15 issues, I think. You started back in 95 and you went all the way down to March 2001, apparently. So that was a lot. You guys did a lot of stuff. And I used to love getting the newsletters in the mail. And you guys always included a little something there, whether it was an Imagica card or something like that. It was a great way to feel part of the community.
Yeah, we loved connecting with the other fans. It was a lot of fun,
Like Cheryl said, she wrote to everybody. That was one of the things in Dread. They had the pen pal section at the back, and she wrote to everybody, and I was the only person that wrote her back. It was having that connection, kind of was nice to kind of try to offer that to. And we talked about that, Cheryl. We talked about wanting to do little extras, getting Clive to sign those pictures for everybody.
Oh,
yeah.
We sent out 8x10s for everybody, and it was, he was very generous with us too. He helped us out with a lot of that stuff. It was. Were
you guys living close to each other at the time? Where were you guys at the time?
I was in Michigan,
Jersey, and Stephen was in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
To New Jersey, but he didn't budge out of Michigan.
Now I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Now we moved there.
Yeah. Well, when we started our podcast, it was Alaska and Portugal.
Right. Can you imagine the time difference on that? And then we try to get guests to come in from England or from, the East Coast. And it was like the weirdest times that we had to schedule for those things on our end. It was fun. What was your first contact? What was it? The Books of Blood? Was it Hellraiser? What was it for each of you? Can we start with Stephen?
Well, I remember I was probably 17. I was walking through a store and I had some kind of urge come over me where I decided I was going to was going to be a reader, because I really hadn't been a reader before that. And I walked by the paperback section, and I remember seeing this little paperback with the ghoul face on it with like gummy worms coming out of the mouth.
Yeah, that Halloween mask one. Yeah, I remember that.
the really cheesy first edition paperback that came out. And I thought, looks like a good book. I'll give it a try. And I took it home and I sat down at the kitchen table and I read it, in a couple hours. And I was like, oh, this is great. Let me go find some more. And of course, the book had just come out. So I became forever waiting for the next Clive Barker book.
Oh, wow.
From the first book. So that was my introduction to the Barker world. I don't know about Cheryl.
Ground floor.
Ground floor, yes.
Yeah.
Cheryl?
Well, I guess I started liking him I saw the Hellraiser movie for the first time when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
Husband, I don't know, I think we went to the movie theaters to see it or something.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by Pinhead, that he was so beautiful but so scary, because I've always hated zombies and just that type of horror. But Pinhead to me just was like something otherworldly. So I had no idea that Clive was a writer. So once I saw the movie, I was a huge Anne Rice fan. And I kind of found out that Clive wrote books. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to try some of these guys' books. And so I got Books of Blood. And that's where it all began. I read everything after that for I don't know. I ended up getting divorced. I was a single mom, very young. And all I did was stay home and read for a couple years. So I just went through 2 bad relationships in a row, and I just sat home, went to work, came home, read, and took care of my son. So just was a very strange time in my life. And I had a hard time always connecting with other people because I was always kind of odd and into different music. And, and that's why I started writing to Stephen, because I just couldn't connect with people it's normal for me.
I hear you. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and reading could be so therapeutic. I mean, with me, it was I keep saying this, but Clive really made me fall in love with the English language because, I started learning English when I was 7 years old. I did read a lot, but when I really started reading novels in English was really with Clive Barker. And after I watched a piece of Hellraiser late at night on TV where Frank is in his bloody suit saying, "It's Frank, it's Uncle Frank." And I was like, what the hell is that? So that's the kind of thing that got me into it. It was at the time the comic books were also coming out, and Nightbreed was coming out, and I got to see Hellraiser 1 and 2 and 3, and then I just kind of got hooked. And I started reading, I think it was the Books of Blood or Cabal was my first novel that I read. So, and from there, I just, started importing them because they had to be imported from England. We only had the Damnation game was translated in Portuguese. So that was the only, I think they also translated in the meantime, The Thief of Always in Portugal. But I don't think they translated anything else in terms of books. I had no problem reading in English. But that's really, I had to have a dictionary, and I was reading The Great and Secret Show so I could learn all these new words that Clive was using,
That's excellent.
The thing I loved about him is
yeah,
you would say, what is this word he's saying? And then you'd have to go look it up. And I always felt that he was challenging your mind because you were just exploring and learning new things, And I always felt that he was so multi-talented. I knew he was the director of the movie and wrote the movie. And then I realized he was an artist too. And then when I realized he was a writer, I was like, oh my God, what can't this guy do? I'm surprised he doesn't sing at some point, It's
right.
He's just so talented, and I just totally fell in love with his whole world.
Some people are a triple menace, but he's like a multiple menace because he does theater, he does photography, he does painting.
Yeah.
Nowhere has that become more diversified than when I started getting into Clive Barker and I started realizing all the stuff that he did, movies, theater, and now you guys covered when Incarnations came out, some of the theater plays that finally came out when those 2 volumes came out. And it's a shame they're out of print, but right now Phil and Sarah have been publishing tiny little versions of the chapbooks for the plays. So they've been putting out a lot of stuff. I don't know how much you guys keep up with Clive Barker stuff. Are you still keeping up with that?
I don't keep up with any of it.
Yeah. You
Steven does.
I
Yeah.
do.
More than me.
have you seen the latest Hellraiser yet?
I have, yeah.
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 Do you want to share any opinions about it?
I thought that they did a pretty good job with it, to be honest with you. They spun it pretty well, updated it. I can really appreciate the story that they came up with. And, I don't know how much involvement Clive had, other than putting his name on it, taking a payday.
There was some interviews where David Bruckner said that consulted and whatever. So
yeah,
eventually they had some meetings at least.
I think it was pretty true to the mythology, but it had a nice spin to it. A nice new, fresh take.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Better than the stuff that we had been given over the last few years of decades of Hellraiser.
Oh,
right.
Some of the sequels were just not that good at all.
I didn't see past 4. I don't think. I think I.
Oh. Well, that's
yeah.
That's good.
Ashley Lawrence is on Hellseeker. That's the 6th one, but the story is not. It's not that good, unfortunately.
I haven't seen the later ones. I just finally let my daughter see Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2. We watched it actually last month. So
really?
Hitting all the horror movies, and I'm just like, this is just so weird watching this so much later on. And of course, to us it was like super scary, and and she's laughing at the scenes. I'm like, that's not, I'm like,
no.
So,
yeah, it's like I went to see recently. I went to see Goblin's live score Suspiria over here in Cleveland. You've seen Suspiria, I imagine. You know how it goes, and there's parts where like they're really scary, and I'm like in my seat, like, wow, this is cool. We're watching the live score of the movie, and they're playing the movie at the same time. And then people were just laughing at some of the kill scenes, and I was like, why are you guys laughing? You're wrecking it. Like, get into it. Immerse yourselves into the experience. But I guess some things are just hokey now. And people just...
Even Freddy Krueger, we watched Nightmare on Elm Street. She saw it for the first time. She was cracking up at some of the scenes. I'm like, when I saw this as a teen, it scared the crap out of me.
Right?
Yeah.
But after a while, it does become, you're supposed to laugh at some of those things. So.
Not in the first one, though. The first one is pretty, the first one's pretty creepy. It's just only later he became like a jokester and stuff.
Yeah.
Have a demented child, I don't know.
So, Jose, you were right. I looked it up. Lost Souls was republished in 2016 in a book called Dark Detectives.
Yeah, it's 6 years ago. So I don't blame you for not remembering. It's been we've been doing this for 10 years. So, but you guys did even better because you guys did like 6 years of a fanzine, and you guys had to come up with content and all that stuff. So, who talked the most with Clive? Was it you, Stephen? Did you call him up regularly, or?
Well, not regularly. What was it? Maybe twice a year, was it? Maybe, Cheryl?
Okay.
Something like that?
It depended. Like a couple times we called him on Christmas. Remember, he was reading Sacrament to us over the phone when he was writing.
Oh,
wow. Cool.
It was very sporadic. We talked to his assistant more than anybody.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I did. I talked to Rob.
Yeah, Rob Humphreys.
Yep.
Yeah. And he was always so super charming and nice, and was always like, no worries. But Stephen, I think, talked to Clive more than anybody and recorded on tapes all those interviews and things like that. I was nervous.
It was about twice a year for the first couple years, and then he was in his heyday, I think. He was very busy, so I think it cut back to maybe once a year, and he would introduce us to, hey, you should talk to Doug Bradley or Scott Bakula. Lord of Illusions is coming out, and that was fun. I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
We did go to the Lord of Illusions premiere. Yeah, not the premiere itself, but the premiere party in New York City.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Anybody there that you guys recognized?
I don't know. New York City, you always see famous people.
Sure.
Just I remember seeing Scott Bakula was there, right?
Oh, I know who that piano player. She played a thing beforehand, but I didn't know who she was at that point.
That lady.
Diamanda Galas.
Diamanda,
She came out and did a whole thing before that, but I wasn't familiar with her work at the time, so.
I've seen her live a few times, and she can be pretty impressive.
She was.
Yeah.
I think the biggest person that we met through the whole Clive Barker thing is probably between Doug Bradley and at the Light Wisdom Sound when he came out and did that poem, which I...
Ginsberg?
Yeah, Allen Ginsberg. Yep.
I finally identified that it's not a poem that he wrote.
He wrote he recited a sutra, I think. Yeah.
Since I live in the Bay Area now, they have a Ginsberg kind of museum in San Francisco, and I went in there and I told them about that, and I said, I'm trying to identify this poem that he read. And they're like, we never even heard of that. And I was like, oh, geez. So
here's the funny thing. Years later, I was making a feature for our blog, and I found out that someone who was there that night recorded Allen Ginsberg reciting that, and they put it up on YouTube. I'll give you guys a link to that afterwards.
I actually found it when I was talking to the Ginsberg people. I'm like, well, somebody had to have recorded that thing, so I went and I sent it to them.
Oh,
yeah.
Found out what it was. It wasn't actually a Ginsberg piece. It was just,
Right.
Do you remember how we even got to go to where he was painting the mural?
Bess said something like, do you want to go see him paint? But
No, we were at the gallery, and Clive called the gallery and said, I need this piece that I painted that's at the gallery for inspiration or something to that effect. He needed to see this particular piece that he did. And they said, okay, we'll get it over to you. And I happened to say, well, my car is parked outside. You remember this? We're like, well, we can drive his painting over there. And so
how we got over there?
They handed this painting to us, put it in the back seat of the car. We jumped in and drove over to the nightclub, and we walked it in, and he's like, oh, thanks for bringing it over. And just like, go ahead and have a seat. We sit there, watch him paint. He had the thing on the floor. He's, walking back and forth across the painting. Remember, he stepped in red paint at one time, and he put red footsteps across the painting. And he went, oh, shit. And he looked back, and he goes, oh, that doesn't look bad. He just left it. It was hilarious.
Wait,
he's
so
just like, have a seat, hang out. And he's gracious, started talking to us, hey, who are you guys? Why did you hear the story about how we met?
Yeah, the people from Cenobium were there too. They sent us some pictures. Nina was there at the time, and I think Ed might have been there, Ed Martinez of Cenobium. Stephen, you carried that painting rolled up in your car to the nightclub?
No, it was a frame. It was a framed painting.
Okay. Yeah, because this thing was like 10 by 20 feet. It was like enormous.
No, it was
on errands. Every time I hung out down at the gallery, I was always running out to send mail or do so. It's not unlikely that we would be sent with a painting.
Me and Ryan, we had a chance to visit the studio when it was still there because, Clive used to have those 3 houses right next to each other. I think now he only has one of those, but back when we went there, we got to see the studio, and they were doing all sorts of things for the Imaginer art books that came out. I don't know if you're familiar with those. There are these art books that came out, 8 of them, 8 volumes with like some of the best Clive Barker paintings that were published by Phil and Sarah. And they were just scanning those things over there, scanning all the pictures, taking photos and color correcting them so they would look good in the art books. And it was just an incredible amount of canvases. And I'm not sure, I think a lot of those canvases might have been painted after you guys stopped Lost Souls because you guys didn't cover the times of Aberrat, right? Well, you guys broke up in like 2001 or something?
We covered like the arsonist painting and stuff in that era.
We were getting out right as Aberrat came around because HarperCollins sent us a couple things. I remember getting a couple watches, original Aberrat map, whatever.
Yeah, I got that one. Yeah, it's great.
I got that too. I guess I don't remember.
Yeah. That was right. I think that was right at the end where we were running out of steam, I think. Mike said to us at one point when we were thinking of
doing it, and he said, only do the website if it's something that you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point where it just became a chore. And I was not loving doing it because I had 2 kids, and
Right.
it was like trying to get information from them was like pulling teeth, and they just didn't seem like anybody's really interested in doing it at that point. So, and Stephen was working a lot of hours, and he had a family too at that point. You know, life gets in the way.
Oh yeah, trust me. I mean,
We didn't get paid for doing it, so it's kind of like, you know.
Yeah. We've been doing this for 10 years. There's been quite a few times where we're like, should we keep going? And it's like, it involves a lot of time that you have to like spend on your weekends and on your downtime that you could be spending with your family, but you're reading a book for the podcast or you're writing an article and you have to put it up on the blog. And sometimes you're just like, it's just become like a second job. But I get it. You guys had a lot on your hands.
It was hard to get people to contribute as far as the technical side on the website because, you know, people who do websites and things expect to be paid. And we didn't have funds really to pay anybody. So we went through many webmasters and many people. And luckily, my husband kind of picked up the slack. And then when we found Craig Ford, it was like a godsend because he would have done anything I asked him. He was just wonderful. We lucked out by finding him because he just did everything at that point.
Yeah.
How did we find him? You met him at a signing,
You
right?
found him.
I found him? Oh,
You found him. Yeah, he was in... Or no, wait. I met him
You met him at a
in
signing.
Minneapolis when I went out there with Barry. We went to a Clive signing at some bookstore in Minneapolis. And I met Craig at the signing, and I gave him your information. He said he wanted to help out on the website. And then you guys talked, and I remember you saying, "Oh, God, this is great. This is so much help."
Because it was, you know, we needed someone really bad. We went through like 3 different people that, you know, were involved in it and just were kind of like ghosting us because,
because we had no money.
You help us.
We totally understand. I mean, Jose and I are the only 2 that have stuck around and continuously contribute to our blog and everything. It's like a lot of people come to us and say, I want to be a writer for your blog. But then when it's time to actually, it's like, hey, there's a news story. Can you put this one up? It's like, oh, you know, I'm kind of busy right now.
It has to be a labor of love or it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
You know, and Craig was the person we found who was in love with it.
Well, you guys did a great job in keeping fans together and stuff. As a young adult trying to find the people that share the same interests that I did, I mean, that was kind of instrumental in keeping me connected with what was going on. And I would visit that website every day. I would anxiously wait for my newsletter to arrive.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
How many issues were there of Lost Souls?
I think it was 15.
Oh, wow. Okay. Actually, I have a kind of a funny story. So I lived in Japan in 1995 when the Lost Souls newsletter started. So I had a big collection of the Dread fanzines. Then I went to college in Japan, and so I was like completely out of it. I didn't have a computer. I just was like only my studies and stuff. And I mean, and I got into the website when I got back. I didn't really have a collection of the Lost Souls newsletters or fanzines, official fanzines. So I just recently I bought a bunch of them on eBay. And
oh my God.
and I guess who was the seller?
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. It was
you. Oh my God, that's
Steven.
Yeah,
I found a few during this move that I moved out to Maryland. I found a box that had, I don't know, must have had about 30 issues in it, you know, but they were all like issues 0 and 1 and 2 and 4. There was no complete sets.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I going to do with all these? Should I just toss them out or?
Well, you know, it's funny. It's probably the last issue you sent all the back copies to me.
Did I?
Know what the hell I was going to do with them either. So I brought them down to Barnes & Noble, and I put them in the little vestibule that they give away all the free shit. I just kept bringing stacks every week, and eventually they were all gone. And I'm like, when my husband saw them on eBay recently, saw ones that Stephen and I signed, and they were going for He's like, I told you not to get rid of those.
Yeah.
These ones I bought signed, but not from you guys. Somebody else had the signed ones.
There are some on eBay right now, signed by you, Stephen, and Clive, and stuff like that. They're still making the rounds.
Do you remember where we signed those, Cheryl? That convention that we did.
Oh, where we met
Hans.
Oh, that was in Atlanta?
In Atlanta, yeah, Dragon Con.
Hans
That's
Rupert.
weird that I signed anything. When my husband said there's issues with your signature on it, I'm like, I never signed anything. I totally didn't recall any of that.
Hans is a famous chef now. It's great.
He's a great guy. Hans is a great guy.
We almost had him in the show. Yeah.
But he's so busy. But yeah, for people out there who don't know, he made the bibliography or the glossary for the paperback version of Imagica, the appendix. And he was instrumental. I mean, he was one of the founders of that Imagica card game.
He got the go-ahead to do that at that Dragon Con.
He came up to the line, and he had this piece of granite, Clive, that he made. Mm-hmm. Stephen and I really liked him. We hung out, and then when Clive came, we were like, oh, you got to meet this guy. He has an idea for a Imagica game, and Clive gave him the rock, and I guess they became good friends as well.
Yep.
Wow.
That was a fun weekend.
Yes. No sleep, though. I was exhausted the whole time.
The worst part about that, we had this Lost Souls banner made up. I had this banner, I was like 8-foot banner. We brought it to this convention because we had these panel discussions that were set up, and we hung the banner up. We left after one of those discussions to go do something. We came back, and somebody had stolen the banner. Somebody had ripped it off.
They stole a lot of stuff.
They did steal a lot of stuff,
stole merchandise. They stole the banner. It was after the panel was at nighttime, and I said to the guy, is our stuff going to be secure? And he said, no problem, Ed. Sure enough, somebody robbed. They didn't take everything, but they took. I'm like, what are they doing with our banner? Of all things to steal. It's like.
Yeah.
So that's out there in the world somewhere.
In someone's garage, yeah. How did you guys get all the art that would go on the covers of Lost Souls? Was that Rob that sent you guys scans of that stuff, or?
No, that was mostly from Bess.
Okay, Bess Cutler. Okay.
Yeah.
From Bess, but Rob also sent over some copies of sketches that Clive did. Mm-hmm. They had copy written across them, so I had to actually take out a lot of that. And do some work on the graphics, but
did you guys get the picture, the painting photos that you put up in the galleries also from Bess Cutler? Because there's a lot of pictures of Clive Barker artwork in the old website, like all the paintings, galleries that you guys had.
That's all pictures I probably took at the gallery.
Oh, so you would take each picture
all the time? Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
The one cover of his self-portrait was a piece that I owned, that I bought. And I bought Jive that was in Thief of Always.
Oh, yeah.
I had a lot of his pieces. I sold them all since then because, being a single mom, I needed the money. So my collection got sold through eBay or whatever.
How about you, Stephen? You still have any artwork?
Yeah, this is a sore subject.
Okay.
I don't like to...
That's fine.
I do have some. I sold my Pride and Joy, which was Clive Barker's, but I sold it to Phil and Sarah, so I know that it's in a house where it's loved.
What painting was that?
The self-portrait, the one where it's the head, and there's a creature inside the head.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. I had that in one of my notebooks. I printed that out in colors and put that on my notebooks for the longest time. That was a great painting.
I used to own that. I'm very upset that I had to sell it.
Wow.
Is that the little white creature inside the skull and then the silhouette of the head? I know exactly which one that is. That's amazing. Wow. It must have been amazing to have that on the wall for a while.
I have a few.
I myself have a couple of sketches.
I got married, and Clive sent me this. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
I can see it.
I remember
It's kind of cool.
Hello, Stephen? That's what it says?
Hello, Stephen. Yeah, and
yes.
This is Clive Barker in Boston.
That's great.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I have the only artwork I have left is he drew a cat in one of my Thief of Always books because he's like, "What do you want me to draw?" And I've always been obsessed with cats, and he drew me a cat. So when I sold most of my book collection, which Phil and Sarah bought, they got a lot of really nice personal drawings that I got from Clive, but I could not get the cat one. I kept the cat one. I still have that one.
Yeah.
I still have other pictures that he signed, but nothing has art sketches in it. Because he used to sketch in Stephen's book and my book all the time.
That's pretty fun. When the news came out that Nightbreed, that someone found a tape that had scenes from Nightbreed that never made it to the movie, and I don't know how much you follow that stuff. The director's cut of Nightbreed that came out like in 2011 or 12. I don't know, Ryan. Do you remember?
Yeah,
11.
It was 2012. Well, the footage was in 2009.
Yeah, that was back in 2009.
But it was assembled into the Cabal cut in 2012.
We got to be part of that whole, Occupy Midian kind of project, and the Cabal cut was made and toured around the world, like I don't know how many countries. But we ended up visiting Clive's studio around that time to go to the premiere at the Crest in Westwood. So that was a fun experience to go there and get to see Clive, and we sat in the front row, and it was so much fun. But seeing Clive's studio was just a titanic amount of like sketches and paintings, and once he got into Abarat, he had thousands of canvases. They were like thousands stacked everywhere, and it's just crazy how much stuff he had.
When we were at his house, he was just building that
the studio.
Yeah.
It was actually in construction, so we never were actually in the finished product. We only saw that they were going to build it. So.
Oh, I see.
Did you guys collaborate with one of the Clive Barker Appreciation Society people? I think her name was Deborah. We still are in touch with people like Ed Martinez from Synobium. He still joins us for the podcast.
That was very nice.
Yeah. And he told us that the Clive Barker Appreciation Society, I think it was mostly women, like 3 or 4 women that ran that thing. I never got to see. Did they have a publication for that at any point? Do you remember?
I don't recall.
I don't remember seeing anything.
Yeah. So they were just kind of like a group of people, I guess.
We used to see them in Manhattan at the gallery openings and the things going on, but I didn't really know many of those people like personally, and it was kind of like everybody's doing their own thing, and everybody wanted to be number one. And
so what are you guys into now?
I read a very large array of different things.
Still in fantasy?
Yeah, I still read fantasy. Not so much anymore. It's like, I don't know. I've read so much of it. You know who I really liked over the past couple of years is David Sedaris.
Sure.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He just makes me laugh. I went to a couple of his signings, and I've been to a couple of his tours, and he just is so damn funny. So I guess as I get older, I just need a good laugh sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. My wife loves him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I don't know. I read so much different things.
Yeah. And movies.
I don't know. What movies do I like? I got to ask my daughter. I'm more into music. I'm more of a music person over the last... Actually, I've been a big music person ever since I'm younger, but I'm very into Morrissey. I'm very into Lana Del Rey.
Sure, I love Lana Del Rey.
Yeah, I go to a lot of concerts. I'm like totally obsessed with Lana Del Rey. Like crazy obsessed.
Yeah. I found this place nearby here in Cleveland called the Grog Shop. So I got to see the legendary Pink Dots recently, and then I saw Earthless, and I saw Claudio Simonetti from Goblin. So that's kind of stuff I'm mostly into. And of course, you can't see it, but I have a bunch of Clive Barker stuff here. I have the Midian key, the one that Lylesburg used, the prop, and Ryan's a huge fan too. It's all blurry back there, but it's supposed to be a banner of the Clive Barker podcast somewhere over his head.
Isn't that a Lost Souls banner right behind him?
He's the guy.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
He hid that for the interview.
You made that banner to go to a convention in Alaska, right?
Yeah. No, this was the long con. I wanted to finally reveal it to you guys that I stole your banner.
So I drive for a living. So I'm on the road. So I do at least 1 or 2 audiobooks every week.
Oh, yeah.
But I find that I don't get sucked in to that many different books. I find Blake Crouch is fabulous. Mm-hmm. Stephen King's last 3 books have been some of the best stuff that he's written.
What, If It Bleeds? Is that one good?
No, it's later. Billy Summers and Fairy Tale.
Yeah. What did you think about Dr. Sleep? And did you see the movie? That's okay. I mean, it's just.
I didn't think it was that great.
Yeah.
I mean, the book was better than the movie.
Yep, that's always the truth.
I'm a big Harry Potter person.
Really? What house would you pick?
Ravenclaw.
There you go.
I'm a Ravenclaw for sure.
I could see that one coming a mile away.
Yep. Yeah, I enjoyed those books a lot, and I just love the movies. I really love Daniel Radcliffe. I went to see him in a play in Manhattan a couple years ago, and it just was like such a cool experience. I was like literally like right in front of him. And then after the show, he came out and he signed everything and took pictures with my daughter and I, and it was just like so cool.
Wow. Yeah, that is cool.
That was a lot of fun.
So I guess now all the back issues of Lost Souls are finally tapped out of print.
Okay. Out of print, yeah.
Print,
there you go.
Gone.
I wonder if I still have them on. What was that disc that we used? Zip discs or something?
SideQuest.
SideQuest.
Oh wow! Yeah, right.
SideQuest then did Zip
gosh.
discs after that.
I probably have them somewhere.
Look, I remember when you guys started your site. I still remember I went there using Netscape Navigator and stuff like that. And you guys still had like the Lament configuration. What did they used to call that stuff?
The web ring.
Web rings.
Yeah.
Yes, web rings.
Yep.
Yeah, that stuff, it's just awesome. I remember that stuff.
I've heard that in a long time.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys are still keeping the website up. I'm glad you guys got a chance to let us know a little bit about how it was like to create Lost Souls and be a Clive Barker fan around that time, which was, like you said, it was in his heyday. In the 90s, he was doing like Lord of Illusions and Candyman 2 or whatever was coming out.
Hellraiser,
there was a whole bunch of things.
Hellraiser 4.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's kind of harder to get news from Clive Barker, but there's still a lot of stuff coming out. They're going to put out a 4K Blu-ray of Rawhead Rex. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
That turkey. Yeah.
And transmutations.
It's going to come out.
There you go.
It's going to come out in Blu-ray, finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's been clamoring for that one.
Do you know anybody that's buying Blu-rays?
I do.
I don't know anybody. Everybody's downloading now.
Yeah.
Ryan got into the 4K Blu-rays recently, but I still got a lot of VHSs around here. I still got a whole shelf of VHSs that you can probably see.
Yeah.
That's fun. I just got my mom. I had to put her into assisted living recently, and when we went to clean out her house, she still had a VCR, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking this.
Yeah.
It's a thing nowadays.
Yeah.
It totally is a thing.
VCR for years, and there's things. I have some VCR tapes that I can't play on anything for like 20 years. So we haven't picked it up yet, but it'll be fun to watch some of that old stuff on VHS that I have.
I still have my Laserdisc player.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I love Laserdiscs. Although there's nothing they can do that DVDs can't do.
I have VHS of Light, Wisdom, and Sound. I don't know what's in it, so I guess
Wow.
Watch that and see what content's on it. That's what it's called, so who knows?
Oh my gosh.
Some of it is that after party, Cheryl.
Oh, it is?
Remember the freaks and guys that were hanging on hooks and
it's there?
Suspensions and stuff? Awesome.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I seen some shit in New York City when I used to club down there, but that was another level.
Wow.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was in Atlanta, though.
No, that was
Party, wasn't it?
that was was it? Was it in Atlanta?
Because when we went to that party, I said, "This is like stranger than the vault down in the."
Oh yeah, you're right. It wasn't Atlanta.
Guys hanging from hooks and bleeding, and it was bizarre.
Wow.
It was like
into it,
flesh, like really happening in a nightclub. And
It was the modern primitive
Wanting
stuff that was
to.
going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that guy walking around that came off the hook and he was bleeding all over and he was getting like really close to Rob and Rob was drinking. I'm like, you better get away from that guy. You don't want him bleeding on you. It was disgusting.
Oh man.
That's incredible.
So it was hard for me to deal with being in there.
Oh.
I just remember how focused Clive was on what was happening. He was riveted to the guy that was hanging from hooks.
Sure. Yeah, that was right up his alley.
Yeah, but he wouldn't do that, right? As far as, I mean, I don't think so.
Who knows?
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
What happens behind closed doors, right?
Right.
Hey, consenting adults and all that. This was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for joining us for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be able to talk to you guys, and yet here we are, years after the fact. And it's been almost 21 years since you guys stopped Lost Souls, and here we are still talking about it because there's still people looking for those issues and selling them on eBay and, still checking out the website.
I wish I had some of them. I would just send them to fans for free, I don't have any of them.
Well, if you guys have a lot of pictures and stuff that you've never published, definitely you guys should think about gathering some of that stuff and maybe putting it up on the internet at some point, because I would love to see that stuff.
I would love to see a collected book of all the fanzines from that, from that time, from the 80s.
Yeah, or the interviews.
Through the late 90s, yeah.
We'd have to track down every single person who ever made a fanzine, so that would be kind of hard. That would be. And I don't think there's anybody out there that has all the publications, like everything. Yeah. Right? I have a few. You have a few. I'm sure you guys have a few.
And they're all on outdated media and stuff. Everybody's backups, or if they even have those at all anymore.
I still have some of the Cenobium stuff, I think. And a couple other things I still have.
That's cool.
And I have all the Lost Souls issues, of course. I kept a copy for myself.
And this is the book I'm showing in right now to the camera. This is Dark Worlds. So this is a really thick hardcover book, 330 pages. It's really great for, it talks about every single thing that Clive Barker ever did and kind of contextualizes it, with Clive Barker's life. And
I'm happy that they have continued on and showed the world his work, because it really does need to be out there.
So coming up next, we have commentary classics for Hellraiser VIII, Hellworld. That's everybody's favorite Hellraiser.
Right.
A to Z commentaries. We're on the letter Z, so we'll be coming back, bringing those back around. We haven't done one of those in a long time, but this will be Z for Zombie and Dawn of the Dead, the 1979 Dawn of the Dead.
Nice. It's going to be fun. We might have more people join for that one.
Yeah, and Visions of Heaven and Hell. I'm hoping that we can squeeze in one more Jericho Squad before the end of the year.
Well, that's a lot of cool stuff to listen to look forward to, and this podcast having no beginning will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.